From 1968, that's Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart with Love Every Day, my favorite song by the duo right here on the Vintage Rockin' Pop Shop, and we're so thrilled that songwriter Bobby Hart joins us. Along with Tommy Boyce, he's responsible for so many hits, not just for Boyce and Hart themselves, but also for Jay and the Americans, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and of course, they were the guys originally behind the Monkees and all of their hits. And Bobby, I thought I'd do something a little unusual. Instead of just having the normal interview, I thought I'd let the songs tell the story. So I'd like to ask you about specific songs, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And the first one up is Come a Little Bit Closer.
Yeah, Tommy and I, that was our first top 10 hit together. Come a Little Bit Closer was written in 1964 for Jay and the Americans, obviously.
Yeah.
And Tommy had been back there a couple of years before me, and I got a chance to finally join him in New York, and so we started writing together regularly, and that was really the beginning of the Boyce and Hart career as partners. And we ran into a guy in the elevator at 1650 Broadway, which is the other big building besides the Brill Building where all the music business was taking place.
Right.
All the offices, and the elevator ran into Wes Farrell, and he had told us he was going down to play some songs for Chubby Checker. Want to know if we had anything. Well, we pushed the down button and went home and wrote something and came back, and he took it and became Chubby's next single. That was Lazy Elsie Molly, which became a single for Chubby. But then after that, Wes asked if we would like to maybe try to write something with him. And he said the Jay and the Americans are coming up to record soon, and so we met him after hours. He ran the publishing company during the day for two older building type publishers, and so we met him up there, and we said we were kicking around. Tommy was playing some little riffs on the guitar and kicking around titles and ideas, and I said, well, why don't we do something like it was a big record called El Paso, big country record,
sure,
by Marty Robbins, something about south of the border, since you're playing this little Spanish riff here. Wes had already written "Hang On, Sloopy," which had that feel to it, so we were just kind of playing with that.
Mm-hmm.
And only we make it, not where the guy dies in the end. We'll make it a little lighter, and we'll make it a pop song. So they said, okay, let's try something like that. So I threw out in a little cafe just the other side of the border. So that kind of got us started, and that gave us a place to start with. So it really flowed fast and fun, and it was a song I could never have written without those two guys. And the fact that Wes came up with as a rhyme for the other side of the border, he came up with she was sitting there giving me looks that made my mouth water. Well, that was his New York accent. I never would have thought of rhyming water with border, but the way he said it rhymed.
In a little cafe.
That's Jay and the Americans, Come a Little Bit Closer, right here on the Vintage Rockin' Pop Shop. The co-writer of that song is on the phone with me now, Bobby Hart. That is a dynamic production. I mean, it's everything but the kitchen sink on that.
Well, it was turned out to be Jay and the Americans' biggest hit, best-selling hit out of, I don't know, they had something like 22 chart records, and I was told that it got them noticed by the Beatles, who hired them to be their opening act in their first U.S. North American tour.
And it was only a year later that you became involved in the Monkees project.
Yeah, that was also probably pivotal, that record, because Donnie Kirshner liked that record a lot, and he called Tommy and offered him exclusive publishing deal with what had been Nevin Kirshner Music Publishing, and he had just sold it to Screen Gems Columbia Pictures. So that's what got him back to the West Coast. And in the meantime, I was writing with Tommy half the time in New York, and the other half the time I'd be on the road with Teddy Randazzo and his band, and we'd be playing Vegas mostly, and gave me a chance during that time to write my second top tenor with Teddy, which was Hurt So Bad.
You've been making out. Why don't you stay?
Tommy, in the meantime, when I'm in Vegas, he calls me and says, I'm back in California, and signed with Screen Gems. I can get you the same deal I got, and I'll give you $100 a week, and we don't have to work. We just have to write songs, and it's great. So I gave my notice and joined him back at Screen Gems in Hollywood.
Well, you talk about writing Lazy Elsie Molly very quickly. With the Monkees, you had to churn out a lot of songs very quickly.
Thank God we had been writing for a few months. We got that interview from, Screen Gym sent us over to talk to Bert Schneider and Bob Rafelson, who were contemplating doing the show, the Monkey Show, and they told us, well, you've seen Help or Hard Day's Night? Yeah, we've seen it, of course. Well, we want to do that kind of a look, but it would be American Beatles on television. Well, we thought that was a tremendous idea because we were old enough to remember what happened when Ricky Nelson sang his first song on the Ozzie and Harriet show, what the career that came out of that. Combination of weekly exposure of your music on national television, that was very exciting to us. So we convinced them we were his guys, and they hired us to do the 3 songs for the pilot show. So during that whole time, we worked pretty much during half of 65 and half of 66, not only writing the songs for the pilot show, the theme song, and I Want to Be Free for the scene where Davy's walking on the beach after he lost his girlfriend. And
right.
But we were also stockpiling. They had told us we would be producing the records as well, so we were stockpiling songs during that whole year and getting ready for this project. But then, finally, when Donnie Kirshner, who flew out to L.A. after this, he wasn't paying much attention to the show during the year of preparation, but once it was sold and the pilot was sold to NBC and sponsors and so on, then he flew out and he said, you guys have hits as writers but not as producers, and this is just too big a thing. I can't let you produce this. And of course we were crestfallen, and because we had really been putting a lot of time and energy into a formula of the sound, what we were going to do, and so he tried a number of other producers. He tried Mickey Most in England, and he tried Snuffy Garrett, who was very hot with Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and he got the songs, he got the productions back from Snuffy, and he said they sound like Gary Lewis tracks, and he wasn't happy with that. So he flew out Carole King and Jerry Goffin, and they took him in the studio, and we heard the report the next morning that they had flown home in the middle of the night, that the Monkees had made Carol cry, and I don't know what the deal was. So we're getting really close to the show going on the air in September, and there's nothing in the can. So we finally, at that point, we saw our opportunity. We went back to Donnie and we said, give us 15 minutes in this little $10 an hour rehearsal studio. I'll take my band that I work with in clubs at night, and we'll work up the arrangements of 2 or 3 songs. You come down and listen. If you like what you hear, give us our project back. Well, he was blown away, and he said, you guys are back on the scene. So we got to do the first album.
Now, there were 2 versions produced of I Want to Be Free. Which do you prefer, the more up-tempo one or the more ballad?
That's a question I've never been asked. We did a version for the pilot. Then, of course, when we actually recorded for the album, we did the string quartet yesterday, kind of string quartet arrangement.
Right.
That's the one that I think was the best. Of course, a lot of other people have covered that song, and I also love the Andy Williams version and some of the others. But looking back, it's interesting that we have so many songs that he and I, during that period, are kind of our bachelor days in Hollywood, were about non-commitment, about wanting to be friends and not be tied down. And I Want to Be Free is like that. I Wonder What You like that. So we had that theme going subconsciously, not even realizing it at the time. But looking back, you can see it.
And it's funny because so many young girls heard that song and thought, "Oh, Davy's singing a beautiful love song to me," and really he's singing, let's not get serious."
Yeah, exactly. It's true. I had a lawyer once who told me that he and his wife, that was their song, that I Want to Be Free. And they ended up getting married, of course.
We just heard a montage of 3 versions of I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, beginning with the original version, recorded by Paul Revere and the Raiders, and of course the Monkees, and then segueing into the Sex Pistols and their version of I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, co-written by my guest today, Bobby Hart. And when you and Tommy wrote that song back in 1966, of course, you had no idea that 10 years later it would become a punk rock anthem.
No, that's true, and and I didn't hear that. I didn't hear the Sex Pistols version until several years after. Somebody said, "Did you ever hear that?" I'll send it to you, and I was blown away. It was like, wow. But even before that, it had become kind of a garage band anthem. It was, I don't know why, but maybe it's just it had the four chords that were easy to play or what it was, but so many people have come up to me and said, that's the first song I learned to play, and in my band when we used to rehearse. And just dozens and dozens of people have told me that, and why so? I guess the Sex Pistols were the first of the punk groups to do it, I suppose.
Well, it's a good aggressive song,
Yeah, it is aggressive, and it was just fun to play, I guess.
When I talk to people about Boyce and Hart, there are obviously a lot of people that know Boyce and Hart as the great songwriters who had all these hits. And there are other people who know Boyce and Hart more as the singing duo. Did you have ambitions to be the guys out front?
We did. Tommy and I both started to find a career for ourselves as artists, and we both had been recording singles all through our earlier days. I got here to Hollywood in 1958, and at 18 years old, and Tommy was the same age, and he was living in a suburb of L.A. and coming into town trying to get record deals, and we did. But once we had done the Monkees project, then we were starting to appear in the teen magazines as the guys behind the Monkees, and there was this vibe going on, and we were getting offers from record labels. So even though our singing styles were quite disparate, we said, well, I guess we have to take advantage of this opportunity and become a duo. So that's what we did, and we had our success together.
One of my favorite Boyce and Hart songs, I think most people will say, I Wonder What She's Doing Tonight. For me, it's Alice Long.
Oh, good.
Can you tell me about that song? I just love that track.
Tommy started that song and showed me the first part of it. He said he had seen an old classic movie. I believe it was with Jimmy Stewart, where he said it to June Allison, I think. "Oh, you're still my favorite girlfriend." Wasn't Alice Long, but so we just kicked around names and came up with something that worked.
That was Boyce and Hart with LUV, Let Us Vote, the official campaign song of the Let Us Vote movement, released in February of 1969, the movement to lower the voting age to 18. Bobby Hart is our guest today on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. And Bobby, how did you and Tommy get involved with the Let Us Vote movement?
We got involved through Joey Bishop, who had a late-night talk show at the time. He got involved with this student campaign to lower the voting age to 18 and asked us if we'd write a theme song for it, which we did and released on A&M. But then they named us national spokesperson, so we went to Washington and walked the halls of Congress and lobbied senators and Congress people, and that became a big part of our lives in 1968. When we would do our shows, we would sing it and mention it and talk about it. We would go when we did our interviews in the various cities. We would talk about it, and so it was really gratifying when it became law and 18-year-olds could vote.
Now, a lot of the things that we're talking about are also covered in a new documentary film called Boyce and Hart, The Guys Who Wrote 'Em. How did this project all come about?
Well, I knew Andrew Sandoval, who's the co-producer many years, because he was at Rhino. When Rhino bought the Monkey Masters, he was the guy who remastered them and did the liner notes and so on. So we had been friends. And then Rachel Lichtman had for the last couple of years or three, had done the video backgrounds for the Monkees live concerts when they would play on stage, and you'd see all the shows behind them and so on. And I was impressed with the work she had done there. So the two of them came to my house and to pitch the idea. And I liked their thinking. It was kind of fresh. It was it was not just going to be a bunch of talking heads like you normally see on documentaries. A bunch of old guys, that you thought were dead. They have voiceovers in it, but you don't see the faces, and so as a result, you stay in the period. You stay in the '60s, just doing the whole 90 minutes, and you just hear what people are saying in the background. And so they asked me to narrate it, told me that concept, no talking heads. So I did something. I'd been approached several times, but I knew these guys were both really fans. I knew coming from the right place, and Rachel really wanted to do this project. So they're the two producers. Rachel's the director. So I went in my storeroom and pulled out all my 16-millimeter films that I had and shared all my home movies from the period. So there's a lot of stuff people have never seen from the '60s of Boyce and Hart, and I think it came out nice. I mean, it has to go by so quickly because there's so much to cram in. It's like bullet points. So whereas I've written a book called Psychedelic Bubblegum, and that'll be coming out in February or March. So the people who want to hear the details of how songs are written or get deep into it can read the book.
That's an interesting title because obviously people to criticize the Monkees or they'd say it's bubble, but there's always like a twist, a sort of there's always a weirdness
that's true.
to some of those tracks.
Yeah, and that's where it came from. And there's a line in the book where we're talking about when Tommy and I relocated to L.A. from New York. There was really a paradigm shift in popular music, and what had been pop in the first half of the '60s was totally replaced by when the Beatles came on the scene, and then we got here in '65 back to California, where there was all this new psychedelic influence going on. So we'd be down at the Whiskey watching the Doors or the Leaves or the Seeds, or
right.
one of those groups. So that influence immediately creeped into our producing. So we were doing songs for preteens basically, but they had sitars and feedback guitars on them.
Yeah, and so many great songs. Where can people go online to catch up with the world of Boyce and Hart? Not only the movie, but also your book.
There's Tommy's widow, Caroline Boyce, maintains a wide presence, and you can find her. I think it's called officialboyceandhart.com. Mm-hmm. There's a new website called bobbyhart.com, which is just getting started, so it doesn't have a lot there yet. There's a bobbyhart.net site that Kevin Baldwin has maintained for years and has some information there. But the most to stay current on the happenings, I would say that the official Boyce and Hart for now would have the most information on it.
Well, hopefully we can have you on again to talk about the book.
Yeah, that would be very nice. I would appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Before I let you go, can I ask you about two more songs?
Absolutely.
All right. One of my favorites, and it's a Monkees cut, and I think it was done by someone else beforehand. She.
Yeah, She was one of those songs that we wrote before we even knew we were going to get that Monkees project, and we produced it with our friend Del Shannon. Because it hadn't come out as a single, but I think it did come out as a single, if I'm not mistaken, by the Monkees later on, and I'm not really sure the timing of it, which one was first. But that was just another one of the songs we would write. Tommy and I would like to, before things got so hectic and we become artists and we're pulled in a million directions at once with acting and singing and all. That first year back in L.A. with Screen Gems, it was really nice because we would write in the park, or we'd write at the beach, or we would write at the library. I mean, we just save up songs. I think we were contractually obligated to turn in a couple of songs a month or something like that. Or maybe it was one a week, but we would go off and write 8 or 10 songs and stock them up, and then we could just relax and have fun, hang out on the boulevard. So it was really a really fun time that first year. And that was one of the ones that we wrote during '65 and early '66, and I'm pretty sure that we wrote that in Griffith Park.
That was She, written by Tommy Boyce and Bobby Hart, performed by the Monkees, and in the recent Boyce and Hart movie, The Guys Who Wrote 'Em, Mike Nesmith says that Boyce and Hart were the best songwriters for the Monkees.
He said some very nice things, which was totally unexpected, because there was always a little... I mean, we were always friends and always friendly, but over the years it was Nesmith who orchestrated the coup for the Monkees to gain control of their music, produce their own records, and I'd never really heard him say that much nice about our participation. So it was really unexpected and very sweet of him to come. First of all, just to do the voiceovers for the film and to say the very kind things that he said, and so. I had heard him say that he liked Clarksville in the past, but other than that, I never heard anything he liked about Boyce and Hart.
He seems to have mellowed.
He has mellowed. I guess we all have.
Yeah. The last song I want to ask you about, because it's worth noting that the Monkees continued to record Boyce and Hart songs right up to the very last album.
Right.
You know, there was always some presence on one of their records. Here's an oddball one for you.
Okay.
Through the Looking Glass.
Well, there was a promotion man named Red Baldwin, and that Tommy and I knew, and one time we were driving somewhere, and he said, "I got a title for you," and he just threw that out. And we took titles wherever we could find them. We thought it sounded good, and so that was, I don't remember too much about the actual writing process, but it was one of the later albums that the Monkees did, well, before the total disbandment of the group.
Right. Well, it certainly would fit the definition of psychedelic bubblegum.
That's right. You know, my writing partner looked it up on Wikipedia or somewhere, and found out the origin of the word psychedelic. Psychic means mind.
Sure.
And delic means alteration or changing. So even though that became, of course, just part of the drug culture, that name, it was around before that, and that's what it means. It means changing your mind, maybe improving yourself in some way. So that's the secondary meaning. And my writing partner and I, my book writing partner and I, are going to go out and do some keynote speeches and seminars and talk about creativity and talk about the thoughts and how important they are and how they create everything that we call physical. It all came from the thought first. And some of the things that I've learned over the years of through the process of what I've been through. So I don't know if that would be the title of our keynotes, but we thought it was a good title for the book.
Oh, it certainly is. Hey, I want to thank you so much, Bobby, for chatting with us.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and we'll be on the lookout. Obviously, Boyce and Hart, the Guys Who Wrote 'Em, is playing all over the place in festivals, and I'm assuming there's going to be a DVD at some point.
They're doing some of the festivals. They're doing, I think over the summer there'll be a couple more places in Los Angeles where it gets played. Maybe one festival, and then the Grammy Museum. There'll be a screening, I think, over the summer. And what they're looking for is the theater distribution. And because it's made for theaters, a lot of documentaries are now showing up in the art houses and so on.
Right.
So in fact, the one that won the Academy Award last year was music related, and the one before. So they're looking for the theater distribution, and then the second step would be it'll probably show up on a Showtime or a Netflix or something like that, and then be available for streaming downloads or DVDs.
Wow. Well, again, thanks, Bobby. It's a great honor to speak with you. You've, whether you knew it or not, you provided the soundtrack for certainly a lot of my growing up and so many other people's as well.
Well, I appreciate the kind remarks, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.